with what you said. That's a fine comment. But my point is more focused on the basic theory of deterrence with Golden Dome, which says that if we have a robust missile defense, our adversaries won't attack us. And by the way, part of the rationale given for this war was that at some time in the future, the president said in a matter of days, although our own intelligence community has said it's more like a decade, Iran will have the capability of shooting ballistic missiles at the United States.
For months, Americans have been sold a dazzling promise, a next-generation shield that would make the homeland safer than ever. But in one of the most revealing exchanges on Capitol Hill, that promise started to crack. Because while Washington talks about Golden Dome like it's the future of American security, one brutal question changed the entire conversation. If our missile defenses are protecting dozens of locations in the Middle East, why is not a single American city protected here at home? And when Seth Moulton pushed Trump's generals on that contradiction, the answer was not reassuring. It was devastating. What followed was more than a hearing. It was a warning that the biggest weakness in America's defense strategy may not be overseas at all, but right here, hidden behind the sales pitch.
Now please recognize the ranking member, Mr. Moulton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. There's bipartisan agreement on this committee that our incoming threat detection is not perfect, but I detected a circuitous and vague insult on my intelligence in the previous remarks. And I would just point out to the gentleman from Wisconsin, whether he's a gentleman or not, that the only person who voted against the formation of the Space Force on this committee was Republican. Lieutenant General Gainey, your air defenders saved thousands and thousands of lives in the Middle East. I disagree with the war, but I honor and praise the service of our air defenders and want our allies and the American people to appreciate that. Just give us an idea. I mean, approximately how many installations and cities are you currently protecting with Patriot and THAAD batteries?
Ranking Member Moulton, thank you for that question. I'm extremely proud of our air defenders currently deployed in the CENTCOM AOR. Our 32nd team are covering dozens of location facilities, and some of that covers some of the city out there. And the way that they are fighting this fight, you know, we have teenagers out of high school and officers out of college sitting in that van day in and day night fighting a complex threat out there, and are doing magnificently doing. Not only that, we are rapidly reducing data and innovating in real time to be able to get after some of these complex threats that we thought we wouldn't have been able to do.
And that's fantastic. I mean, this is the most complex air defense fight that the U.S. has faced, and you can see the pride that you have in your soldiers, which I appreciate. Protecting dozens of installations across the Middle East. General Gutlein, how many American cities are currently protected by Patriot or THAAD batteries?
Today there are none.
Today there are none. So we're protecting dozens of installations in cities in the Middle East, but we're not protecting any American cities with these assets. Does that concern you?
Congressman, I'm very concerned about the Homeland Defense equation. We are vulnerable to a numerous array of threats that Golden Dome is being designed to get after. We have traditionally focused on the intercontinental ballistic missile threat and have not really thought enough about the cruise missile, the hypersonic missile, the ballistic missiles from air or from sea, nor now what we're seeing the expanding counter-UAS threat. So we do need to expand our defense equation.
I totally agree. But if Golden Dome is such a priority, then why are we expending so many Patriot and THAAD missiles at millions of dollars a copy in the Middle East when we have not a single American city, not even the capital city of Washington, D.C., protected here at home?
Congressman, we are changing the defense equation of the homeland to get after those threats. Traditionally, we relied on
Well, I'm just saying, like, we didn't have to start this war. So if we wanted to change this equation and it was so urgent, then why are we not putting these batteries here at home rather than starting a war of choice in the Middle East that's eating up so much of our inventory?
Congressman, my focus is on homeland defense. I cannot answer to the overseas conflict.
Mr. Berkowitz, in General Gutlein's opening statement, he makes a policy assertion that Golden Dome forces our adversaries to question whether an attack could ever succeed, making them less likely to threaten or attack the United States in the first place. How have we seen that theory either sort of supported by current events in Iran? I mean, we just heard from Lieutenant General Gainey that we're literally protecting dozens of installations in cities with our missile defense assets, which notably are not protecting American cities here at home. But Iran has just shot more drones and ballistic missiles at us and our Gulf allies than they ever have before. So it just seems like this basic theory of deterrence is not working with the current conflict.
Deterrence occurs in the cognitive domain. It's a psychological phenomena in the minds of our adversaries. I think we're talking about a regime that may be beyond deterrence. They have, for decades, pursued nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. Successive administrations have engaged them.
And yet they weren't projecting power the way they are now until we started this war. And my point is more focused just on, I don't disagree with what you said, that's a fine comment, but my point is more focused on the basic theory of deterrence with Golden Dome, which says that if we have a robust missile defense, our adversaries won't attack us. And by the way, part of the rationale given for this war was that at some time in the future, the president said, in a matter of days, although our own intelligence community has said it's more like a decade, Iran will have the capability of shooting ballistic missiles at the United States. But that basic theory seems blown out of the water by our current experience, which is that we have incredibly robust missile defense across the Middle East. We've been singing its praises in a very bipartisan way, and yet it has not stopped Iran in the least from shooting a lot of missiles and drones at us and our allies, which to the basic, which also, to the point is that missile defense is not perfect, has ended the lives of several Americans. And so I think we should just be asking more questions. I'm unfortunately out of time, but Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, is it possible for me to respond?
Feel free to respond, sir.
Mr. Moulton, I just wanted to complete my thought, which was deterrence is in the adversary's mind, and in this case, they have not been deterred at all. They have been killing American citizens for the better part of 40 years through a variety of means, not just through ballistic missiles, but through a variety of
Have they ever killed
modalities.
Americans by ballistic missiles before?
They have not, but they've used many other tools.
And I agree. And I've seen Americans personally killed by Iranians. So I think I understand this threat in a pretty real way. I've been there on the ground in Iraq, seeing Marines killed by Iranians. So I get that. I want to defeat them. I want to win. I would like to be buying more interceptors. I would also like to prevent a war in the Pacific. What I don't want to be doing is getting bogged down in a war in the Middle East that we're losing while also spending hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars here at home on a theory of deterrence that seems pretty shaky. And if the hope is that what didn't work against the Iranians will work against Putin, that kind of hope is not a good strategy, at least in my mind. But I appreciate the conversation and look forward to continuing it. Thank you.
Are you both finished?
Oh, no.
We'll carry this.
For the purposes of this discussion.
We'll save
and let me
for
tell you,
upstairs.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, I very much appreciate the intellectual discussion that we are starting to have on this committee, because I think for too long it's just been, hey, you want to do this, go ahead. And Mr. Berkowitz and others have really been willing to engage in this debate, which fundamentally is important for the American people, for the taxpayers whose dollars we're supposed to supervise. So we may disagree. It may take us some time to come to agreement on these issues. The debate matters, and I appreciate your willingness to have it.
And this is where the hearing stopped being just another Washington argument and turned into something much more dangerous for the people selling Golden Dome to the American public. Because Seth Moulton wasn't simply arguing about procurement, budgets, or military jargon. He was exposing a contradiction at the center of the entire pitch. On one side, The United States is burning through high-end missile defense interceptors in the Middle East, spending millions of dollars to stop cheaper drones and missiles, protecting bases, installations, and allied positions across a region already sliding deeper into chaos. On the other side, the homeland itself, the place taxpayers assume comes first, still has no Patriot or THAAD shield standing over American cities. That is not a minor oversight. Emphatic. That is the kind of admission that cuts through all the branding, all the speeches, and all the glossy presentations. Because once the public hears none, once they hear that not even Washington, D.C. is protected by these systems, everything changes. Suddenly, Golden Dome doesn't sound like a shield. It sounds like a slogan, and that is what made this exchange so powerful. Moulton understood that the most effective way to challenge a giant defense promise is not to attack it with abstract ideology. It is to force the people defending it to say out loud what the public was never supposed to focus on. How can this be such an urgent national priority if the assets are not defending the homeland now? Why are we told the danger is immediate, the threat is growing, and the system is essential, while the actual protection gap inside the United States remains this obvious? And if the answer is that Golden Dome is still being built, still being designed, still being debated, then why is it already being marketed to Americans as if it were a near mythic answer to every future threat? That is the real damage Moulton did in this hearing. He shifted the debate from technological ambition to political credibility. Even more importantly, he went after the theory underneath the sales pitch: deterrence. Because Golden Dome is not just being sold as a shield that can block attacks. It is being sold as a psychological weapon, a system so powerful that adversaries will supposedly think twice before ever launching anything in the first place. That sounds strong in a speech. It sounds presidential in a press conference. It sounds like the kind of line that fits perfectly in a campaign ad. But Moulton pointed to the reality unfolding in real time. The United States and its partners have already fielded serious missile defense capabilities in the Middle East, and yet Iran has still launched more missiles and drones at U.S. interests and allies than ever before. In other words, the existence of missile defense did not end the threat. It did not freeze the battlefield. It did not make the adversary back down. And if that's true in a region where these systems are already active, then why should Americans blindly accept the claim that scaling up a homeland version suddenly creates a new era of perfect deterrence? That is why his line about the theory being blown out of the water matters so much. It wasn't just a good soundbite. It was the central indictment of the entire concept. Missile defense can save lives. It can buy time. It can reduce damage. It can absolutely matter. But that is very different from saying it can deliver invulnerability. And once politicians start blurring that line, once they sell a finite and imperfect system as if it were an impenetrable wall, they stop educating the public and start misleading it. That is exactly the broader concern Moulton raised in his official remarks as well, when he argued that missile defense has limits, that it is incredibly expensive, and that it is not a strategy by itself. That point is devastating because it forces viewers to confront a harder truth. You cannot spend your way out of every strategic mistake. You cannot market your way out of escalation. And you definitely cannot promise the public total safety in a world where adversaries keep adapting. Then there is the taxpayer angle. And this is where the issue becomes politically explosive. Because once ordinary viewers hear that America may spend staggering sums on an ambitious missile shield while still lacking basic, visible homeland coverage in the present, the conversation stops being about military theory and starts being about trust. What exactly are taxpayers buying? A functioning layer of defense? A long-term research architecture? A strategic message to Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea? Or a political brand designed to sound tougher than the messy reality underneath it? Congressional analysis already shows that even the basic architecture, cost, timeline, and scope of Golden Dome remain unclear. Some lawmakers see possible benefits. Others warn about strategic instability, affordability, feasibility, and whether trying to defend everything could actually fuel arms race behavior rather than reduce it. So, when Moulton pressures witnesses on what is protected now, he is really asking a much larger question. Are Americans being asked to fund a defense plan, or to believe in a defense fantasy. And maybe that is the deepest reason this clip works so well. It connects a committee hearing to a feeling millions of Americans already have, that Washington keeps making massive promises with military language, patriotic branding, and enormous price tags, while the real-world outcomes stay murky, delayed, or incomplete. Moulton took that frustration and gave it a shape. Not through theatrics alone, but through one simple contrast nobody in the room could escape. Dozens of defended sites overseas, 0 defended cities at home. That contrast is unforgettable. It is visual, it is emotional, it is political, and above all, it is the kind of point that viewers will repeat to each other after the video ends. So the real question after this hearing is no longer whether Golden Dome sounds impressive. Of course it does. The real question is whether it can survive contact with reality. Can it protect the homeland in a meaningful and believable way? Can it do so without draining resources, accelerating strategic instability, or selling Americans an impossible standard of security? And if the people promoting it cannot answer those questions clearly right now, then maybe the problem is not that critics are too skeptical. Maybe the problem is that the promise was always bigger than the proof. If you think Moulton exposed a real weakness in the Golden Dome narrative, drop your take below. And if you think America's defense priorities are finally being asked the hard questions they deserve, stay with us, because this debate is only getting started.